Infrastructure development and investment are the focus of government's economic recovery plan. President Cyril Ramaphosa has said that this administration's economic recovery plan was moving ahead with a number of infrastructure development projects which have already started. Dr. Kgosientso Ramakgopa, head of infrastructure and investment in the Presidency, undertook a two-day visit to the Northern Cape to look at one such project today. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Good evening, Tsepiso, and good evening to the viewers. Thank you very much for the invitation.
So let's first start with the strategic importance of the Northern Cape and the opportunities that it offers.
Well, I guess the Northern Cape has come to present itself, if you like, as a renewable energy complex in the country. So you know that a lot of renewable energy projects, this is a combination of solar and wind, are concentrated in the area, and also now represent a new frontier for exploitation of mineral resources. So we know about the mineral belt in the Katu area, the exploitation of those resources and providing much needed jobs in that place. But also it's besieged by a deficit in relation to the provision of basic services. So I'm talking about water, energy, and waterborne sanitation. And this is constraining, if you like, the development of that area. We know that in some parts of the provinces, we are not able to fully exploit the potential of agriculture because of the collapse of agricultural irrigation water schemes. So really the intention was to, one, ensure that the projects that we've announced as part of a package of measures that are intended to recover the economy as part of the country's economic reconstruction and recovery plan, they get to be actualized. Remember that we had made the point that we're moving beyond just the conversation, just announcement. So we want to see real tangible results on the ground. Okay. There's a bit of agency that must be attached to this effort. So it was part of that exercise, really.
So let's talk about the geographic spread of the project pipeline, specifically in the Northern Cape. I know you've mentioned that they'll be building on schools of universities, but you spoke about water resources now. And I want to look at the upgrading of the Vagamagara a regional bulk water supply scheme. What is expected to happen then? How are communities going to benefit?
Well, the intention, one, is to ensure that we are able to facilitate, if you like, the growth of the primary agricultural sector and its contribution to the GDP, because we know that a significant proportion of the GDP in the Northern Cape is based on primary production. And for that to happen, there has to be availability of water. And then the second part is that we are using this bulk water infrastructure not only to service industry, and in this instance is in the form of primary production, that is agriculture, but to ensure that there's infrastructure that is provided for reticulation. So there are parts of the province where communities are sharing water with animals, and I think it's something that is untenable 26 years into the democratic project. So it's important that we are able to accelerate the provision of water infrastructure so that potable, clean water is available at the right quantities at the time that the communities need it. We know that what COVID has done is to expose some of the most if you like, acute deficit in relation to the provision of basic municipal infrastructure or services like water. There's over 6,000 schools that don't have clean, potable running water, don't have, some of them don't have decent sanitation. So part of the project is twofold. It's both an economic intervention to ensure that the economy of the province and all other spaces continues to thrive by providing the necessary network industries that are going to support the recovery of the economy in those spaces. But most significantly is to ameliorate the conditions of living of people in those spaces.
So before we run out of time,
our commitment to universal access is achieved.
Before we run out of time, Dr. Ramakgopa, I want to talk about the access to opportunities for some of these projects, especially, for instance, the small IPP power purchase procurement program. Are these capital intensive for people who are already excluded from the mainstream economy? How are they able to access this? Do they need backing from somebody? Is there an institution that needs to act as a guarantor on their behalf?
Yes, I think it's a fair question. So one of the things that underpins the economic reconstruction and recovery is to ensure that there's a real quality transformation and there's inclusion. So in the design of this project, we're focusing on the entire project life cycle. So the important part is to ensure that there's greater levels of participation, one, at the level of producing the input materials that are necessary to produce these assets. And we're beginning to place minimum requirements for Black participation, Black industrialists, but we also get to accept that some of them are illiquid. They don't have the necessary capital for them to participate in that space. And for that reason, we're able to work out, if you like, a mechanism to ensure that there's guarantees of take within the parameters of existing legislation. And on the basis of those of take, we have been able to engage with the commercial banks and some of the DFIs to ensure that they get to finance the capital infrastructure requirements. So in this way, we think that we are going to broaden the opportunities, if you like, democratize the space, ensure that as we produce this asset, we are simultaneously able to ensure that there's a significant alteration of the economic relations of society. So the interventions must be focused, must be deliberate. So we're taking an entire view, value chain view with regards to the delivery of infrastructure, not focusing downstream just on the delivery of the asset, but also ensuring that the level of the input material, the Black players gets to participate, in particular women and youth-owned enterprises. So
but
it's a
is there communications
of the measure?
Is there a community communications portal for this? Because unfortunately, people often hear only of these opportunities from people who you either have to do a favor or people who are going to position you so you can get these opportunities. So is it accessible?
Yeah, so exactly the point why we get to visit these provinces. So we have presented to the cabinet cluster what we call a social facilitation strategy. So essentially it's getting one, not just to announce the project at the community level, to introduce it and its various components, but also to galvanize community participation in the various aspects of the project value chain and take an active role in ensuring that we facilitate their participation. So it's not just visiting the area, but it's getting to engage in a more meaningful and productive fashion with the community to say these are projects that are coming into our space. This is what the value chain present, the opportunities presented here. So we're not looking at them to participate just as mere subcontractors or exploitation of their labor, but also more meaningful participation with regards to the production of the input material. It's going to be a daunting task, but the state has to be deliberate in its intention to ensure that we get to achieve the transformation and inclusionary aspects of the reconstruction and recovery plan.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Dr. Kgosientso Ramakgopa, who is head of infrastructure there in the presidency. Later on in this hour, we're going to be chatting to the Nelson Mandela Foundation's Sello Hatang on the eve of the 7th anniversary of Madiba's passing.